it seems like it just, the more you can handle them, and it seems a little counterproductive, you know, you're always handling the oats, but those you know, just a few augers, if you have an air system, that seems to work really, really well. When I'm filling the bin, I usually run the fan on the bin, and like if we'd go home and look at the grain system right now, we're running, as it leaves the dryer, the oats go through the air system. As they dump into the bin, I got the fan running on the bin, and that brings up an updraft, and there's just a lot of stuff that falls out. So again, it's just separating the chaff from the good grain.
For marketing purposes, it's important that you have a good watertight bin to put your oats in. You know, if you can harvest a good quality crop, you want to be able to maintain the quality of that in storage. As we are working on developing a business where we can sell our oats directly off the farm to people in bags or in a bulk format, we need to be able to retain ownership of those oats for an extended period of time, and the only way you can do that and keep them in condition is to have a bin that's got that's watertight and that has a proper aeration system in it.
Where I store it, I have a bin with an air floor, and so as soon as it goes in the bin, it gets air on it for at least a couple weeks. So that'll help bring it down a little bit if it's a little higher moisture.
We are pulling a little air through it to help dry it out. 13 is the target moisture when you sell wheat, and the docks are nasty on wheat for anything that's wrong with it.
Most farmers that grow corn and soybeans in Iowa probably have the equipment necessary to keep a small grains crop in good condition after harvest. But quality is important with small grains, especially for food grade markets. We're not talking just about yield, but about test weight, moisture, and a number of other quality concerns. For other markets, further cleaning may be necessary.
So we've got a grain bin over here. It's 18 feet in diameter. It holds somewhere between 4,500 and 5,000 bushel of shelled grain. We've been using it for the last 2 years for storing our oats in until we sell them. One of the things this bin has is it's got a full aeration floor under the entire portion of the bin. So we've got a high capacity aeration fan on that bin that allows us to provide even a full bin of oats with the amount of aeration they need to get through their sweat cycle after you harvest them, or simply to keep them in condition if you're storing them for a long period of time.
Oats will naturally go through what's called a sweat. They'll get hot. But if they won't spoil unless they're, you get them up around, let's say 16% moisture, you're going to probably have some problems. But if you start out at 14% and then you're drying it down with air, you're going to be fine, because then you're going to get it down to 11, 12, I think, for storage, somewhere in that area. think of it kind of similar to soybeans, I guess, where you'd want them under 14 for storage.
I'm looking for 13, ideally 13%. And then we don't have to worry about it spoiling. We don't have to have air on it, although I will absolutely put air on it every time because I don't want to have hot spots. I don't want to have any mistakes because we are raising it not just as a undifferentiated commodity product like corn. I'm raising it for my own usage on seed, so I have to keep the germination up. I don't want to lose germ from a good crop and then make it into a lousy crop just because I didn't store it right.
For seed, we use those little cone-shaped, or those little screw-in fans. They're a pipe about 6 feet long and a fan that sits on top of that pipe. And that works really well for cooling down small amounts and drying small amounts of grain. I just really like those screw-in fans.
We have the advantage of a continuous flow dryer that we can run them through just as a matter of taking off any top end moisture. If it's at 15%, we can drop it down to 12.5 and put it in the bin. So just depends on your goals, I guess.
On the storage side, we have a bin with a small hole aeration floor and a good centrifugal fan on it. So we have the capability to put a good amount of airflow through that bin. And a drying floor that can handle small grains being on top of it without the small grain falling through that drying floor.
We've got roof vents all the way around the top, so even if the weather is wet and you don't want to open the lids on top, you don't have to open the center cap or the side entry door to aerate the grain inside. You can turn the fan on, and we have enough vent capacity on the roof there that it allows the full amount of air you're pumping into the bin to be relieved through the roof. So here is a sample of some of the oats that we've harvested on our farm. Depending on the end use for the oats, so these oats came right out of our bin recently. We recently sold a load of oats to a local farmer who wanted some to mix into some cattle feed on his farm, and he didn't require any additional cleaning than the cleaning that the oats received from the combine before they went into the bin. But we, depending on the end user, it may require you to do more or less processing and cleaning in order to get into that market. Like we've found with horse owners that some of them will take oats just like this cattle farmer did. Others want them to be very, very clean and free of dust. And so one of the things that we are in the process of doing is slowly locating and acquiring some usable cleaning equipment for the grain so that we can do additional levels of cleaning to it before we put it in bags or put it on a truck or a wagon to sell to somebody in bulk. And there again, finding that type of equipment is really challenging. There isn't a lot of it out there anymore. To buy it new is very cost prohibitive, so you kind of have to go on a treasure hunt sometimes to find some of those things in the used market.
For Earl Hafner of Panora, that treasure hunt took him all the way to the East Coast.
My brother in North Carolina, his neighbor had this, hasn't used it for a couple years, was wanting real bad to get rid of it. I stole it. They're about a little over $20,000 to buy one. I don't quite have that much money in it, but we bought his whole system. We got a lot of junk with it. So as we build it here, we have to fix several things. It's an old machine. It's oak, so some of the screws are rusted and the pans were flippy floppy, So you think you're going to clean one day, and then as you walk around it, you realize something's broke. You might fix for a day. But we've been pretty happy with it. That's only happened a couple times. But when something's broke, the first thing you see is you don't get the quality of the cleaning job. You know, if you get it set right, it does an excellent job.
And cleanliness is even more important in this case. Earl grows small grains and mills flour with his son Jeff that they sell to grocery stores and restaurants throughout the state. For them, clean grain is very important. The next step is someone's oven.
So the small grains come to this building here. Right now what we've been doing is we've been cleaning rye because we use quite a bit of rye in our cover crops, in our rotation. We sell some also. Then we'll be cleaning wheat for the mill. This cleaner behind me is a 298D clipper cleaner. This was our new addition this year. We have like 40 different screens with it. We don't exactly know what all we can clean yet, but we know we can clean soybeans and oats and rye and the small grains. We could probably do milo and some of those other grains. We haven't experimented with that. We're still building the infrastructure, getting the grain in and then turn around getting it out. Prior to this, we had a two-screen cleaner. We were not happy with the quality of the grain going into the mill. So this is a 4-screen cleaner. We can walk around to the back side here and I can show you the different screens. So coming out of the purge tank above it, we can regulate the flow. And the first screen we call a scalper screen. So that will take out seed heads, stuff like that, grasshoppers. The second screen actually does some cleaning. So it'll take out some of your smalls. Then the third screen is actually a second scalper. It does a little more cleaning. Then the fourth screen is your final screen before it goes into the conveyor belt and into the Pro Box. Okay, this cleaner coming off of the purge box actually sucks the chaff off of the grain, so that's your first cleaning operation. So there's an adjustment on top that will adjust the airflow that will suck across the grain up there, and that is discharged outside through the large 12-inch tubes that you see on the back side. Then it takes quite a while to find the right screens for the right crop. And sometimes it's just 1/64th of an inch on your screens, but that makes a difference in taking out the smalls and the dust and stuff like that. So it's not unusual for us to change those screens 2 or 3 times until we're happy with the final product. And so then we might have to re-clean 20 or 30 bushel, just because we weren't happy with the quality.
Those oats are, the test weight on those oats is between 38 and 40 pounds. One of the things that we hear a lot from about oats is test weight, and one of the reasons that so many of the oats are grown in the northern United States and Canada today is because, in large part due to their climate up there, they have a much easier time more consistently raising oats that have higher levels of test weight. And one of the things we need to understand about that is that the level of test weight, it doesn't necessarily mean the same thing to every end user. There are some situations where higher and higher levels of test weights are very desirable, but there are other situations too where an oat that maybe doesn't have the highest levels of test weight is more than adequate, or even desirable, more desirable than the higher test weight oat, depending on the animal you're feeding it to and the application. Like the very high test weight oats, they tend to be desired and preferred by people that have like race horses, that have oats, or that have horses that are doing things that are very physically demanding, requiring a lot in terms of energy. But for horses that are used for trail riding, for cattle and hogs, the oats that we're able to consistently grow here in Iowa are way more than adequate in terms of their quality.
While depending on his customer, Earl might be able to sell lighter oats, Darren Fair grows oats that he intends to sell to grain millers. Their minimum test weight for oats is 36 pounds and they dock below 38, so ensuring that it's at that test weight when it goes to market is important to Darren.
Usually we're shooting a little bit under what the standard is, because by the time we finish harvesting and running it through augers and grain dryers, or just handling in general, we'll pick up a few more pounds of test weight. So if we target close to that 35, 36 pounds, we usually end up at 38 pound test weight, 37, 38. I'm not sure that's a guarantee all the time, but it seems to work for us. We will take it to our grain facility or a grain site, and we'll auger it into a wet bin. From the wet bin, we'll auger it into a dryer. It'll come through the dryer. We'll put a little air on it, and just let kind of that whole process kind of polish up the oats a little bit. Then we use an air system to blow it to a bin. And when we blow it to the bin, there's a cyclone on the top of our bin. It lets a lot of the dust and some of the lighter stuff continue to blow out. So, all those things together kind of help continue to bring out the chaff, the light stuff. And then when we remove the oats from the bin as well, either we use a grain vac or we'll use our existing air system. We'll transfer it to a holding bin. It's kind of a little bit involved, but just the process of using air, either grain vac or some other air system, to kind of continue to separate the light stuff from the heavy stuff, just seems to continue to bring the test weight up to a good place. So,
once you have high quality grain in the bin, what's next? Is there a market for food grade oats or wheat near you? Or will you use it on farm or sell to a neighbor as cover crop seed or livestock feed? Next week, we'll talk small grains markets.